Hello Cowboy Nation. Let's go to another round of Dallas Cowboys news. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like so you don't miss any news from your team. Some statistics reveal the entirety of the Cowboys' failure against the Bills. Sunday wasn't very good for the Dallas Cowboys. Sometimes teams just want to get on tape or some other digital equivalent after a demoralizing loss like the one the Dallas Cowboys suffered at the hands of the Buffalo Bills on Sunday afternoon. But that's protected for this one. There have been so many glaring flaws and errors that this needs to be investigated. Thanks to other results around the league, the Cowboys still clinched a playoff spot, but they didn't do themselves any favors by trying to avoid going on the road as a healing team. That seems revealed, and worse, it now appears that the most likely opponent in the first round will be the wave of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just saw Baker Mayfield have a perfect passer rating with the Green Bay Packers. This game's numbers were as dismal as you might expect, but first it's worth mentioning how some specific errors also led to this misery. However, as the ever-insightful Cowboys stats notes, their poor play likely would have led to the loss. Here are some of the ugly numbers. Hitting the ball and cooking. The Bills racked up an impressive 266 yards on the ground, with most of the damage being done by James Cook, who went full blast. He contributed 179 hauls and at times simply decided to go down, as evidenced by the play in the first quarter where he was found near the line of scrimmage. But he simply found himself falling. Dallas defenders attacked the ball, but although they appeared to outnumber the Buffalo players who joined in, Cook continued to advance to get the first down. This was a frustrating scene to witness. The barrels he won weren't due to one or two escapes either, as his longest run in the game was just 24 meters, with one other for 20. He did that in some smaller parts, with some excellent lock opening holes, and his determination keeps turning what should have been short gains into solid gains. He was also the most effective receiver they had, contributing 42 yards on just 2 receptions. It takes a team, but he was as close to a one-man wrecking crew as you'll see in the NFL. This was an absolute failure by Dan Quinn. Buffalo's coaching staff found a real weakness in the Cowboys' defense. They've struggled against the run before, and Joe Brady, the Bills' new offensive player, wisely kept going to the well when he saw how powerless the defense was at stopping the run. Entering the game, Buffalo was averaging a decent but not overwhelming 122.4 yards per game. They completely destroyed Dallas. Quinn's scheme is designed to stop the pass and complete a high-scoring offense in games where the opponent is forced to throw the ball. Josh Allen joked after the game about not having to do much on the field, as he only completed 7 of 15 passes for 94 meters. But some of them were daggers, including the one-handed catch by Stefon Diggs and, of course, the DT received by Cook. They simply didn't need to throw the ball, as Quinn and his defense had no answers against the run. Not so MVP. On the other hand, Dak Prescott had a horrible game. Things didn't improve with Zach Martin's loss in the game, which meant that the pressure on Prescott was even greater and he was sacked 3 times. But his accuracy was way off. He threw a late interception, but repeatedly would almost be hit in the ruins of the spears. It could have been much worse. In one series, he threw 3 consecutive incomplete passes, and that was just another illustration of how wrong he was. It was highly unusual for him. He finished with 21 completions in 34 tests for 134 meters, but a proportion of these came in rubbish time in the fourth quarter, which declared highly questionable judgment by Mike McCarthy in keeping his starters. Throughout this game, getting a touchdown when it had no effect on the outcome simply wasn't worth the risk of injury. The coaching staff as a whole did a terrible job on this one. If they don't improve quickly, this will be a brief postseason journey for the Cowboys. The deliberations of the killed. The Cowboys had 5 deliberations for 48 meters. In fact, this is the best of what we usually do. But the Bills only got hit once in 15. And the Cowboys' flags were brutal, stopping the moves or keeping them alive for Buffalo. The violence against Sam Williams near the end of the first quarter was a real blow and resulted in the Bills' 14-point lead. If he hadn't fallen on punter Sam Martin, Dallas would have put the ball down by one score and the entire complexion of the game might have changed. Instead, they became desperate, with Prescott pressing and making several errors. This also caused the Cowboys to away from the running game, exactly what to try to do with the opponents. That change of script was key in this third disaster of 2023 for Dallas. These three things combined resulted in what was obviously the worst game since the Cowboys' bye. Now we need to go back to the technical committee as they must correct these problems. This was also a road game, where Dallas just hasn't had as much success this year. Next up is a visit to the 10-4 Miami Dolphins, and it's the last chance to prove they can win big time away from AT&T Stadium. This is something they need to do urgently, as the playoffs have almost certainly required them to become road warriors. With the team scheduled for December, it was not expected that they would lose at least one. How badly they were treated by the Bills was not something we anticipated. Now they need to bounce back the same way they did after the San Francisco 49ers did pretty much the same thing to them. Given that these 49ers are a very likely playoff opponent if Dallas avoids making one and immediately, this is imperative. The Eagles' loss on Monday night shook up the NFC East playoff picture. Cowboys news. Dan Quinn gives his opinion on the defensive collapse against Buffalo. Eagles' loss on Monday night keeps Cowboys alive in NFC East title race. Monday Night Football picks and live discussion. Eagles at Seahawks. Bills RB James Cook dominated the Cowboys' defense in a way no one did in a decade. Cowboys kill momentum, raise questions in ugly loss to Bills. Dan Quinn gives his opinion on the defensive collapse against Buffalo. Dan Quinn points out how to deal with run defense issues. Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com. Dan Quinn tries to explain the terrible defensive performance. Fresh off giving up 266 yards on the ground in Sunday's 31-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills, the most runs allowed by the Cowboys since 2012, defensive coordinator Dan Quinn took the podium at the Star in Frisco on Monday to recap what went wrong for their defensive unit in the big loss. Buffalo running back James Cook was responsible for 179 of those yards, as he was able to break containment on multiple benefits and get around the edges for big gains. Adding to this, the Cowboys' defense missed 12 tackles in the running game alone, which allowed the Bills' big day. The biggest impact in this game was our tackling and hawking, Quinn said. We excel at both of these things and have performed poorly at both. Our attack was not up to the standard we had set. That's our secret ingredient, our disarming and our falconry, and we don't have that. I would say it's more about concentration, he said. The other is that maybe you are too aggressive. You're fluttering and you're not at the right angle. Usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. In this case, we needed to take an extra step. We wouldn't attack and miss because we don't need the right angle to take the next step. Eagles' loss on Monday night keeps Cowboys alive in NFC East title race, BTB. The Cowboys had a great chance on Monday night. Currently the Dallas Cowboys still lead the division. What did you think of this news? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any news from your Dallas Cowboys. Thanks.